I was saying last week when Kevin was in the studio that there was a radio ad when I was growing up in the 80s. I can't remember what company it was for, which means it wasn't a very good radio ad in the first place. And it said, your 3 legs of wealth, property, equity, cash. That was in the 80s. It may have applied in the 80s. Does it still apply now?
Certainly property and equity, yes. I mean, equity has terrible times, but over time you make money out of equity. Property equally, as we've seen in South Africa, can also have a terrible time, but over time you make money. Cash, unfortunately, if you take tax into account, you only lose. So cash is wonderful when the other 2 markets are falling, but over time, if you've got all your money in cash, you barely keep up with inflation. And certainly if you take tax into account, you probably won't keep up with inflation. So I'll differ a little bit on saying your 3 pillars of wealth. Certainly cash is wealth, but wealth creation is property and equity and others.
Are there any, you said others. Are there any other pillars that have come up that we need to start looking at?
There are a few. I mean, understand, you've got to be very skeptical about, the new best thing since sliced bread, because there are so many investment schemes that come up and then just disappear and take a lot of people's money away from them. But certainly over, let's say, the last 10, 15 years, you've got alternative investments or hedge funds. They're not that prevalent in South Africa. They certainly were overseas, and that is another, you can say, a half pillar. It's certainly not as big as equity or property yet. And then, of course, specifically in South Africa and specifically in the last 10 years, gold. Just owning straight gold and getting the rand value of gold. Not gold shares, just owning gold. But the big pillar of wealth at the end of the day is the equity market.
Okay. If you then, let's say I put a rand on the table. Right now, looking at a long-term strategy, let's say 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years, how would you cut, slice and dice that 1 rand?
Okay.
How would you invest that?
Look, if it is long-term, obviously you go for the majority that you can put into equity, because equity is the best performer over time. Now, I always ask a question from anyone who asks me this question: what's the definition of long-term? If it's 10 years, that's fine.
Well, then, can I ask a question? What's the definition of long-term?
Long-term is 10 years plus, because over 10 years, you normally can get a fair return out of equity. Equity is a cycle. I mean, it's normally probably a 6 to 8 year cycle. In other words, it goes up for 3 years and then falls for a year and goes up another 3 years. But the long-term cycle is probably 6 to 8 years. You've got to be in equity for the longer term. I mean, we saw 2 years ago the market fell 40%. Now, if you just put in all of your money right at the top, you're probably going to have to wait another 3 or 4 years to actually get your money back. But you probably will get it back.
So we're taking that 1 rand coin,
yes,
and we're putting it into the market for 10 years.
Yes.
How would you cut, slice and dice it?
Look, obviously being a professional investor, I'll say give it to a professional investor, but a person at home can
I'm not saying I'm giving you 1 rand so you can make money. I'm saying here's 1 rand, I want to make money.
You want to make money, buy one of the index tracking funds, so, and it's very cheap.
Like a Satrix 40?
Yeah, you don't buy individual shares to make up your parcel. You just buy the index tracker. It's very cheap, and unless you've got a lot of time to spend reading, listening to programs like this, to go and choose your own shares almost as a part-time basis is difficult.
Listen, it's difficult. I wouldn't base buying shares on a program like this.
No, believe me. And I've also discussed this with so many people. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to buy and sell shares. You don't need to have a degree. What you do need is time. You've got to do a lot of reading, a lot of thinking. You've got to read the company reports. You've got to go to their websites, read their financials. So it's not a case of intelligence. It's just a case of how much time have you got to apply to this.
So you go in and you buy like a Satrix 40. Because they've got all of these different ones on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange now. They've got the Indies and Finnies and Divi and Mini and Mickey.
The Divi one's not bad. If you're an older person who wants a dividend yield, you just get a higher dividend yield. But the top 40 is by far the biggest one and the most popular. So that's what I would do. But I suppose if you want to invest with a professional investment firm, the best rule of thumb is pick one that's been around for 10 years, because if you're around for 10 years, you haven't done too badly a job. and put your money and spread your money within, you know, amongst 2 or 3 of them.
So how much of that R1 would you put then?
10 years, I'll put 100% equity, because that's
really
the best
that
chance.
much?
If it's 10 years. If you go shorter than 10 years, let's say you take a 5-year horizon, maybe 50 or 60% in equity, because equity can fall on a 5-year basis.
So you're honestly saying that if you have any money in your back pocket that's sitting around and is lazy, buy equities.
Correct,
and put it away for 10 years.
In fact, it's not, I wouldn't advise anyone to do this, but statistically, you should actually borrow as much money as possible to buy equity over the longer term, because equity way beats the cost of interest over time. So you should, same as property.
No,
same as property. As long as it's long term. As long as it's long term.
You are saying that you should actually go out and borrow money to buy equity.
As long as it's long term. But you must remember, it's the same as your house.
Is your name Ben Bernanke?
No, not at all. You take your house, you borrow for 20 years on your house. Now the house price can fall and equity can fall as well. But as long as you don't have to repay your loan over, or long as you repay the loan over the 20-year period, you're probably going to make money on your house. So it's quite normal. You put up 5% or 10% capital, you borrow 90%, you buy a house, you keep it 20 years. In 20 years' time, the cost of interest is small in relation to what the price of the house has gone up, and you actually make a lot of money. Now, equity is the same. The problem is people buy equity on overdraft, and you can call the overdraft tomorrow. You've got to match your investment with your borrowing.
Okay,
but it's very long term. But I said this is
baby steps now.
Yeah.
You're saying you've got to match your investment
with your borrowing. So you've got to go to the bank and get a 10-year loan to buy 10-year equity. Don't buy equity on a 1-year loan or an overdraft, because the market can fall tomorrow, it can fall next year. That's when people are caught out with borrowing money to buy shares.
But you see, now I want to go back to the 80s where I heard this radio ad. And in the 80s, I was told by my parents, if you don't have the cash to buy something, you don't buy it.
Things are different nowadays. I mean, if you haven't got the cash to buy a house, you probably never buy a house, because it'll take you so long to save up that capital. So some things you have to buy on credit. I mean, don't buy a consumable on credit. Don't buy a car on credit, because the value only goes down. You must buy something of value on credit, like a house. Now, housing specifically, the reason why people love property is because you can borrow against it. So your 100,000 Rand can buy you R1 million property. Now the property is only going to go up 10% and you've doubled your money. That's why people like property, because banks are prepared to lend you money against property as security.
So you're in effect saying that if you're looking at these pillars of wealth now, you should strip out the one called cash.
Yeah, because you're going to lose out there.
Okay, which you've explained and I can understand, and I'm also loath to give more than I need to SARS. Not that I don't like, I love you, Oaks. You're beautiful. You're, mwah, SARS, we all love you. But you don't want to give more than you have to. But you're now saying that on the other two pillars, you should actually be, I hesitate to use the word because I don't quite know what it means, but I think it makes me sound quite clever. You need to gear it correctly.
Yeah, correct.
What do I mean when I say you need to gear it correctly? Explain to me what I'm saying here.
Okay. Housing is by far the easiest example. How much can you afford per month on your bond installment? That will determine how much you can borrow.
Okay.
So it's very similar to buying anything. It's what you can afford per month, with a bit of a safety margin, because interest rates can go up and they can go down. And lots of people have been caught, because what's happening now is interest rates are at 30-year lows. You know, don't borrow to your maximum now, because in 2 years' time they're going to go up again, or a year's time, whenever the case is. So you work out what you think is a safe level to borrow, but you must fix the loan. Very simple. Our government borrows on 20, 30 years and builds roads, which they get money back over to, or the economy gets money back over 20 or 30 years. Shares are a 10+ year investment. Don't buy shares on an overdraft or anything that can get called tomorrow. Same as your house. You must take, the loan must match the asset.
So basically work out what you can afford on a monthly basis, and then take that out in the form of a loan, and make sure that you've got a bit of fat in there, so that you can, you're not going to be, you're not very stuck short on it.
The biggest thing, I mean, I've been in investments now for just far too many years. The biggest single problem.
What, your 70th anniversary coming up?
It's coming up soon. I'm not as old as David Shapiro. Not yet.
Well, I'm going to get him on this show, and I'm going to pass that one by.
But the biggest fault I've found with investors, and the biggest mistakes made with investors, is they don't truly understand what long-term means. Long-term means you have many sleepless nights, because if you invest longer term, you're taking riskier assets, and riskier assets fall. So what happens is, I say to someone like you, they say, I've got R1, I'm investing 10 years, what must I do? I say, buy equity. Next week, the market falls 30%. They will curse me roundly, and they will not sleep at night time. And they probably sell. They probably sell at the bottom. So longer term, it's a mindset.
So you're saying, if you're in it for the long term, firstly, accept it's 10 years.
Yes.
Secondly, put the money in those equities and forget about them.
Just
do not even look at the market for 10 years.
Because people get, you know...
And then go and cash it in after 10 years and find out how much you've lost.
As we spoke about earlier on, when you look over time at investments or shares or property or whatever, when you look over time, it's actually quite logical the way they react. So when you look at a 10-year graph or a 5-year graph or a 20-year, any statistics, it's actually, you can look at it and you can say, well, that makes sense to me. Like, for argument's sake, when interest rates go up, the market goes down, etc., etc.
It does make a hell of a lot of sense to me, but I want to ask you how it makes sense to you in just a moment. After the break, I also want to look at the offshore options, your offshore allowance, and how those weightings are altered. Is it property, equity, cash there as well? I think what Wayne McCurry is going to say is don't even go for cash there based on the interest rates.